Takes a short while.
I mean, I think it's fairly evident that Duke's not around to make this whole process smoother, so you're stuck with my studio skills. But this week, you're joined by myself, Ash, we've got Daryl.
Hi.
We've got Matt.
Hello.
Mick.
Hi.
And then we've got another special guest, and we've got Pete.
Everyone.
So, I guess we jump over to this one.
Yeah, so we'll just start it off with welcome to the Gamescast from our home offices, because we're still not in the university, but we've got some interesting subjects to talk about today, and we've got Pete from Torchbearer who's going to help us discuss some of these topics, bring that industry insider info as we go through it. But as we always do, as we start off, we're going to do a bit of what's on the box to start us off. So let's
I'll roll the BT for that one.
Roll the intro.
What? What you can say?
You tell me. The box! Who's in the box? What's in the box? Not until you give me the
What's in the box?
Do you know, I've only just noticed the duck hunt box flying past.
That's what if you read the text in the video, it's describing what's on the back of the box of Duck Hunt, and then Duck Hunt flies past.
I don't read it because the audio's distracting.
And there's like the little pop-ups of the little dog, and the duck flies past and gets shot. There's a lot of subtlety in there.
Right, so
if anyone that's never played watched this game before, it's essentially we go through, we read the descriptions on the back of game boxes and try and guess what that game is. Usually we have to rely on the chat quite a lot, but we'll see how we go this week.
Yeah,
and Pete's going to be joining in. Pete joined us quite late, so he doesn't have his own box, unfortunately.
The first time I played this game as well, so up for grabs how good I'll be, but we'll give it a go.
Okay, so mine's first then. So the year is 3057. A struggle for power fuels a society of warring clans. Bitter infighting perpetuates a universe of unrest. War is constant. Victory is temporary. Ceasefire is non-existent. A pause in the stream of salvos is only a signal to recalibrate crosshairs and redirect missiles. Time is scarce before the next unrelenting mission begins. For a blah blah, war is life, and death is the only true release.
I feel like you've taken Duke's spot. I've put in an RTS in because he's not here.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess Warhammer?
3050. Ooh, that's a good guess, actually, with 3057.
I was thinking Supreme Commander or something like that, but I'm not sure if it matches up.
It's similar kind of idea with the Supreme Commander, but not quite.
Or Planetary Annihilation.
Well, so when I say similar, it's not that actual kind of game, though.
Oh, right.
So the theme is similar.
So Supreme Commander is all about sort of mech warfare, isn't it? So is it Mech Warrior, something like that, or Steel Battalion, maybe?
I'll be honest, the blurb has confused me. Like just trying to sink in all those big words. It's just I'm just trying to match
an at and in.
Yes,
Matt's pretty much almost got it.
Really, with Mech Warrior or
Mech Warrior.
Maybe it's Mech Assault then if it's near enough.
We're ready to reveal. I don't have a timer like Duke.
Oh, near enough close enough.
Oh, Mech Warrior 2.
I love the
model. So it's not an RTS, but it's an actual. It's almost like a simulation type thing where you're walking around in your big mechs shooting each other and that.
Now that's really odd that you've chosen an Activision game.
Oh, is that a clue? So you got yours next.
Yeah, there really are thingy things living inside your computer, and one of them is waiting for you to give him a home and be his friend. He will talk to you and play with you and live a very happy life as long as you take care of him. This discovery kit contains a house for one thingy thing. Try it. See who moves in. You will discover a whole new world of computer fun and friendship.
What?
What?
Let Mick go last, because I'm assuming that Mick will probably know and no one else has a clue.
Just
No,
have
yeah,
some kind of-
I have got an idea, but it's probably not. But I'm going to say, is it?
No, because no one else is going to get close, Mick.
Okay,
I promise
go on
you.
No, it sounds Tamagotchi-esque.
Yeah, I can only think Tamagotchi. Yeah.
But it probably predates Tamagotchi. Knowing Daryl, so it's probably
Was it on the Commodore 64 by any chance?
It was on the Commodore 64 and the Amiga.
But
Yeah.
definitely predates the Tamagotchi.
Yeah, I think I know where it is then.
I chose. There's a good story behind this though, so it's quite good.
but it says there are thingy things living in your computer, but I've
Thingy
never
thing-
heard
thingy
any
things-
sort of
No,
rumours.
no. Thingy Things is me replacing.
Yes,
the name
I
of the
know
game.
that. So obviously there's something living inside, other than whether it's organic. I'm just trying to think if there's any.
I quite like in the chat Clippy, Microsoft Clippy. That's quite good.
No idea.
Don't look at the chat. Let's see. Let's see if Mick's got it. Go on then, Mick. See if you got it.
Little computer people.
It is Little Computer People. Yeah.
Showing your age.
Little Computer People Discovery Kit. I was trying to put up a video for it because was incredibly cool. I absolutely loved this when it first came out. I found, doing a bit of research about it just before we started, I just found some really cool bits and pieces. Turns out that I always thought it was a lie. They always said that when this came out that every single disc was unique and there was no two Little Computer People that were the same. And it turns out that they actually created a 6-digit string. Which they took all the discs that they pressed and they ran them through another machine afterwards to insert a little bit of code at the end that had a 6-digit string in it that generated your creature, your person, should I say? So there literally wasn't two Little Computer People that were the same. So I think that's absolutely awesome. The other thing that I found out was that this was yes, it predated Tamagotchi by some margin, but also it was the sort of spiritual successor of The Sims. The guys that developed The Sims contacted, I've got his name here somewhere. What's his name? Rich Gold, who's the main developer, and he was a consultant on The Sims, the original Sims. So it's super cool. But it's a lovely little project. Not really a game, more of a giant Tamagotchi.
Interesting.
Sounds good. Never heard of it. So
It's because you're so young, aren't you?
just looking at the cover, I thought it had a date on it, but it doesn't. So, but it's Commodore 64 era.
Yeah, it was
mid-
85,
mid-80s, yeah.
85, 86.
Wow.
I think it came out in 85 originally and then 86 on other platforms.
Cool. So Matt's box next.
So mine's nice and brief, and I've blocked out the names of the name of the box. So it's something and something join forces to defeat something in this massive new adventure. Experience the sheer power of fist attack, super glide, and wall climbing skills, or let rip.
Is it like a Jack and Daxter
awesome
game or
super
something?
speed?
See, I was thinking Jack and Daxter, but then I saw Super Speed. I was like, it's not Jack Racing, is it?
And I'm thinking Ratchet and Clank.
Hasn't Matt done Ratchet and Clank already though?
I don't know.
Previously?
No, I haven't done Ratchet and Clank, but it's not Ratchet.
No, I haven't because I have today.
No, but it's not that because
Okay.
the clues are in the
Fist.
power-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to place those, but I have no idea.
It's not Gex.
What's the one with the bear and the bird on him?
Banjo Kazooie.
That's
Oh,
one.
Banjo Kazooie.
Oh no, it's not something and something, though, is it?
No.
It's not a Sonic game. When they did those 3D.
Oh, is it Sonic
adventure
and
ones.
Knuckles? Is it Sonic and Knuckles?
Sonic Adventure 2. I'm going to guess that
Interesting.
one.
But you might as well reveal because it's been said in the chat already.
Oh. I was in.
But it's
yeah.
Sonic and Knuckles, which is really interesting because it's like it's not a full game because you can actually. I don't know if anyone's had the original Mega Drive, but you can put either the original Sonic or Sonic 2 into the top of the cartridge, which would add extra levels to those games or unlock the rest of the Sonic and Knuckles game. which was really interesting way of doing marketing.
That's cool. Like I remember Sonic Adventure and Knuckles had obviously those power ups as well, so it kind of clocked it. But I didn't know there was a game called Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah, I only ever borrowed this from Blockbuster. I didn't own it.
Yeah,
As a
great.
throwback.
Yeah, it is essentially only half a game though, which is a shame. But you have to buy the other cartridges to unlock the rest of it.
Okay, so
there was a really nice. If you are interested though, there's a really nice technical breakdown on YouTube of how they managed to unlock the rest of the game by using the code from a game that already released. So if you put Sonic 2 in it, it would unlock the rest of the game, but the code was on the old game that didn't exist yet. So it's really fascinating, the actual technical background behind it, but that's for another day.
that's a weird one. Cool. So I can't see chat, so this should be interesting. But this is one of the best 32-bit platformers out there, if not the best. So evil pigs, man-eating plants, hidden paths, wacky weapons, moving obstacles. Can you believe what has to go through to conquer the menacing swine? This is a really obscure game. I just remember.
Pigs. Evil pigs. The pigs makes a... Was it pigs for... No, that was... What was it called? Beyond Good and Evil, but that was just you played one of the main characters was a pig, wasn't it?
I've already done that one as well. So you always guess it straight away, so I'm quite happy.
Evil pigs.
Yeah.
It's, Angry Birds has evil pigs.
No,
not that one.
Think of one.
32-bit platformer.
That's what it says on the box.
Which implies sort of PlayStation era. So I love how one of the selling points on the back of the box is moving obstacles.
It's a platform with moving obstacles.
The only evil pigs that I've got stuck in my head is from Duke Nukem.
Yeah, that was said in the chat as well.
Yeah.
But God, this is a good one, Ash. I can't even place pigs in a platformer.
So, shall I reveal?
I bet I've never heard of it.
Give me a second. I know
I
what a
already revealed
platform
it.
is. Oh, what was
Just
it?
don't look.
Oh, Tomba.
Tom there. I remember having it on a demo
Never heard of
disc
it.
and pestering my parents for months to get it me. It was
I
great.
think I actually had that, but I don't recall it until just seeing the box now. Yeah, I wouldn't have got that.
Yeah,
No, I wouldn't have guessed it.
Did chat get it?
No, nothing in chat either. Which is surprising. They're usually pretty good.
Good.
So on to the bulk of the discussion points for this game's cast. So we're having to think about what we wanted to chat about, and there's a couple of different things. We've got the discussions coming up because of team projects about to. Well, it's not about to. It's going to begin after Christmas, but teams for final year are already starting to form and be discussed what they might want to do, and it's quite timely with the release of Cyberpunk 2077 being delayed. We thought we'd talk about what it means to go gold, what it means to finish and polish a game, and then tie that into trying to get a prototype polished for Team Project, things like that. So we've brought Pete into because he's just released a Switch game, so he knows the idea of getting it through certification and stuff like that. So we can get some of that insight as well.
Cool. So releasing a game. I think some of the main confusion was people were obviously upset when Cyberpunk was delayed, but they're like, but it's gone gold. Like, how can you delay something that's gone gold? And I think a lot of people don't understand that going gold doesn't mean it's ready to go in consumers' hands. It's not a case of it's gone gold, let's ship it. It just means it's in the final sort of process of being released, and that final process goes through a lot of different things. I mean, Matt's put some good points here. What it used to mean.
Yeah, we were talking about this. Daryl brought it up, saying like, what does going gold mean? Where's that name come from? Where's that term come from? And it used to mean being sent to manufacturer because you used to use gold film on the CDs, and that was sort of like saying, oh, I've got that gold film on them now, so we can't change it. But interestingly, we were asking the question to Mick, what were they doing? What was the term before CDs? So went on like cassettes and things like that.
And it was burning ROM. So you used, you used to actually do the chip, and then you used to have to FedEx the chip over to the manufacturer, to the publisher.
I assume you had backups.
You had like a big machine that you put the actual ROM chip into, and then blew the actual game onto the ROM chip, and then you FedExed a copy of that over to them.
And I presume they then cloned that ROM chip onto all of the other ROM chips.
Yeah.
To
went to the cartridges and that. Yeah.
Similar process later on when I was working on sort of early PlayStation stuff, and that was why I got used. We used to get quite excited. We used to get these special discs, these special gold discs from Sony, and then once the game cycle had finished and the game was ready to ship, there was a special machine provided by Sony, this huge thing that we had in a kind of an open kind of cupboard, and we'd all kind of gather around and be quite excited about the fact that all of our work was finally been burnt onto this particular disc. I was more excited about seeing that process, knowing that was the final stage for us, than actually seeing it on the shelves many times.
Well, you'd have normally spent the last 2 months with no sleep as well. Actually,
I worked for quite a good employer from that perspective. They actually paid overtime, and we seldom ended up working really late. So it's quite good.
Normally it used to be that you'd have done a couple of months crunch before the gold master was sent off, kind of thing, on that. So you was looking forward to it happening.
It's interesting you mentioned the crunch to get it sort of burned, because I think we'll talk about it later, but nowadays you get day one patches, which sort of negates some of that crunch.
Yeah, it's different now though, isn't it? Because there's no actual gold burning kind of thing, so there's no defined deadline anymore. And so even when you send off what you think is the final version, you still got crunch because you're doing patches and stuff.
Yeah.
And that, so there's no hard deadline anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah, I suppose the only lighter deadline is getting through that approval process and not wanting to go through it again with any major changes. But that isn't by any means as significant as actually burning something to a disk, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a phrase now that people use to say, yes, the game's sort of playable from A to B, but we've got a couple more stages to go through. So now it sort of means, yes, we're probably going to send it to a manufacturer, but it needs to be sent for certification as well, which I guess you, Pete, have had quite a lot of experience in, especially on the Switch, which I hear is quite a rough process.
Yeah, it's quite rigorous, and there's lots and lots of steps you've got to go through, and there's some areas that they really want you to focus on in terms of just certain boxes you have to check and certain ways the game has to perform. And depending on what you change in future updates, future patches, or if it's online capable, etc., then you've got to jump through different hoops. So there is a lot to go through.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking as an indie dev like previously myself, it's fine on Steam, because if we released a game, there was no need for a certification on it. But looking at PlayStation 4 and stuff, obviously you need to have those. It's very expensive. It's a long 2 to 6 month sort of process. So in all that time, you've got quite a lot of sort of downtime, which you can use to then start sort of patching those bugs in.
Well, a lot of the certification type stuff is not actually anything to do with the gameplay and that as well. So a lot of it is to do with like the technicals, to do with the hardware and that. It's making sure that systems work with the hardware rather than the actual gameplay itself. So a lot of that certification process is things that, as games designers, that kind of stuff, you don't really have much to do with.
Yeah, so like stuff like if it's going to go onto the PlayStation, does it have all of the like share functionality that they want you to have in? And well, if it's going on to PS5, all the new features that they've adding with the cards and the instant on and instant catch up and all that type of stuff, is they're testing that the game that you have sent for certification works with their hardware as they intend it to, not that it works bug free as a game.
Yeah.
So,
and that's, they will pick you up on bugs if they find them, but it's usually is tied back round to how it performs on the system. So it'll be a crash when they do things in a certain way, or something specific to do with saving, how you're saving files to the system hardware. So it is very much so on that level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which ties back to when you're seeing news stories about Cyberpunk getting delayed again, and people on the internet are going, well, it's already gone gold. What are you doing? It's like, yeah, it means that it passed one phase. It doesn't mean that it's ready yet, and especially with them not wanting to do as much crunch, and with COVID and working from home, is that you can see very easily how it got delayed, just because they don't have the manpower and the resources to put together that final push for release, especially seeing as it's what's going on current generation plus next generation plus Stadia. So that's a huge amount of different consoles. Just stuff like that. It's like, what there's two PS4s, 3 Xboxes, then 2 Xbox Series, and the PS5 plus Stadia. That's like eight different machines. Never mind PC, which we've not even mentioned, that they've got to get it ready for, get it polished for, make sure that it works with all the different systems.
I've not actually seen the story of why it's been delayed, this time kind of thing or whatever than that. But we've also got to take into account as well that it's not necessarily anything to do with gameplay or anything at all. There's so many different departments that are going to be involved in publishing a game of that magnitude kind of thing, that it could be something to do with marketing that has stopped it. It could be one of the top guys in the company or whatever might dislike something to do with it, and he might have delayed it or something for some reason. There's so many different players involved at that point that it could be for any reason that it's being held up again.
Yeah, I think even the main dev team said that it's not gameplay. The gameplay has been there for months now, from start to finish. You can play the game; it's all there. But it's things like Gary just put in the chat that it's performance issues on older hardware and things like that they just can't get quite right yet, and they're having to do
or it could have been ready
for.
And then suddenly some political situation or event happens in the world, and they might have something similar in the game that then suddenly they're like, oh no, we can't release it now like that. There's so many different reasons why a game, ends up getting, delayed again kind of thing and that. So I think the actual gameplay itself is just a tiny part of it.
That nicely brings us into day one patches and why they exist. So you've mentioned all those sort of delays. Yes, the gameplay's there in Cyberpunk, it's ready to go. So why are you expected to download I don't know, it's probably going to be 8 to 12 gig, possibly, the way it's sort of being delayed, patch on day one. And that's because the game's there, so they're finding other bugs to patch out, they're putting new things in, while all these other things, the marketing, the fixing it for hardware, is going on in the sort of background.
And the fact that since it went gold, and since there'll be a dedicated team that are trying to fix performance issues and trying to get it ready for all of these systems, the main core team are still working. They're still bug fixing. They're still adding little bit of content here and there, maybe fixing some textures, or if it's from the artist's perspective, whatever it might be. So that can all get bundled into the day one patch as well.
Yeah, like when I was running the indie studio, it's, yes, we've gone gold, it's ready to release, but we've got to wait for these certifications to come back. We don't stop working and start on a new project because we don't know if that's a success or the sort of end of us. So we may as well spend the time and the team's time refining it and polishing it best we can while we're waiting for all this stuff to come back ready for day one launch. Yeah, so I know Daryl remembers the days probably when there was no internet. So it all had to be done and ready on disc with no patches. And in fact, wasn't there a game on the PS1 that had a demo disc which included a patch for a major flaw in a game? I can't quite remember which game it was, but that's the only case I've seen of a game being patched after release. I can't remember what it was.
I remember, but yeah, vaguely remember that. I mean, technically, the internet did exist pretty much concurrently, sort of with PlayStation 1. So as I started on those consoles, it kind of was there, but it was nascent. You know, people were on sort of 33.6, 56K dial-up, things of that nature. You wouldn't want to download hundreds of megabytes of additional data for your games. Plus, there was, really no way to get that data onto the consoles at that time. The PlayStation originally shipped with an Ethernet port on it, but I don't think it really led anywhere. PlayStation 2 is probably the first thing that was actually even vaguely networkable.
Wasn't it the Dreamcast?
PlayStation.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Was the
Yeah,
Dreamcast.
actually, yeah.
Inbuilt modem,
They did come in between, didn't they?
Yeah, the PlayStation 2 had an add-on pack that you could attach to the back for networking, but PlayStation 1 didn't have any networking. It was the Dreamcast was the first console to ship with it.
Yeah, that's cool. Of course,
but,
Mick worked in games for at least a decade prior to that, and of course there was nothing at all like that. And he definitely worked in games before the actual internet existed. Do you remember ARPANET, Mick? You on ARPANET?
I remember
your defence contractors.
Modems, but then I remember when we had to go to libraries to read books.
Well, actually, we were talking about when do we get onto that part of that? Because we were talking
to find out about games. You had to go down to W.H. Smith's and buy a magazine.
Yeah.
That's how you found out about
games. We were literally talking about.
Yeah,
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's quite interesting. We've kind of overlapped, unfortunately, at the beginning of this with the Grads in Games talk, and Greg from Sumo was doing a really great job in his presentation of talking about things like how when he was trying to learn how to get into game development, is that there was nothing, there was no online, there was no universities, YouTube wasn't a thing, and then we got to chatting because of that about when I was at university that.
Well, at least you were at university.
University is that it was the first
standing
course
on the shoulders of this giant.
Yeah, it was the first course that kind of existed at the time, and then for me, YouTube became a thing in my second year, and so about halfway through to the end of my second year, you started to see like random little bits of video for game dev appearing, but they weren't good. They were absolutely awful. But most of your learning came from either magazines or books, or I've got around here like 3ds Max Bible and stuff like that, that's how you used to learn. And the same thing goes for learning about game, is that you went and got Nintendo Power if you wanted to learn about Nintendo games, or you went and got PlayStation Magazine or Xbox Magazine if you wanted to know about that. So I know Daryl used to say you used to do coding from code samples that came in magazines.
Oh yeah, you used to get Personal Computer Weekly. Used to get little sort of like code snippets for originally the ZX81, then the Spectrum. But all the stuff I learned as far as computer graphics were concerned, I mean, I did programming at college when I was in my teens, but when I wanted to learn how to do games art, essentially was completely self-taught. I had a friend that lived in Sheffield, but because no internet, I couldn't send anything to him. I had to actually drive down to Sheffield and have a chat in a pub. And then just cracked on with it. And as you said, Matt, Bibles. I think the first one I started with was a Max 2 Bible, and just learn. Well, I mean, you made it up as you went along a lot of the time. 3D World magazine would only get you so far, and that was all usually quite high end stuff. It really wasn't aimed at games. It was all quite high end visualization and things of that nature.
It was all trial and error. Right, let me see if this works. And okay, let's try again. Let's try a different way.
Yeah, I mean,
I was gobsmacked. I literally got, I think, the second job I applied for. The first job I knew nothing. I'd been using Max for about 6 weeks and applied for a job and got turned down. But I think I applied for my second job 5 months after I started learning Max, and within 6 months I was working in games. So it was a bit mad. I mean, obviously nowhere near as much to learn as there is these days, but yeah.
Well, that's it, isn't it?
Quite peculiar.
That is the difference. Is nowadays there is a lot more to learn because there's a lot more technology. There's far more software packages than there ever used to be to get your head around. But on the flip side, there's a lot more resources available to learn them. So it kind of balances out to a certain extent because you just need to be able to access those resources and be able to put that your mind to it.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I don't know about you, Mick, but for me, it was literally Max and Photoshop with a little bit of D-Paint.
Yeah, I was using D-Paint and trying to think of the other ones that was at the time on like Atari STs and Amigas and that. And then we went on to Photoshop, and then like 3ds Max came out, kind of thing. But yeah, so I mean, I'd been doing about 5 to 8 years of graphics just in 2D, doing pixel stuff before 3D came out. So yeah, it was. In fact, yeah. What was the one that used to be on the Amiga? The 3D rendering that did Babylon 5 on.
There was 3D rendering on the Amiga.
3D toaster. 3D toaster. Is it? While you think of that, I'll just say that obviously I did some FMV stuff on the PlayStation because they used to have video streams at the beginning, so I had quite a lot of After Effects on those as well. But that's really about it. If you knew 4 pieces of software, that was it. You knew everything you need to know.
But those were on the Amiga that came out first.
I can't remember.
TV Studios started doing, and they did Babylon 5 with it and that when that first came out, and then it went to 3ds Max.
Whereas nowadays, an artist, they need to know Max, Photoshop, ZBrush, Substance. You can probably start throwing in some other random ones, but Marmoset and then UE4 or Unity, and then start narrowing it down to things like Rhythm and Fluid. So there's a lot of new softwares to learn.
And there's all the software that will help you do things differently as well. So yeah, loads more software and skills to learn, but loads more knowledge out there, loads more resources. So
yeah,
sort of
the fact that you can just type in your piece of software, the subject that you want to learn, and you into Google and get hundreds of video resources, written resources, all from industry vets and things like that. It's just crazy nowadays how much there is out there to go and absorb. We kind of went off a tangent from our main subject, but I thought it was quite interesting.
Just another quick tangent. I noticed when you're all talking, my mic is picking up stuff. I'm just asking chat, can you hear feedback when people are chatting that isn't me? And we'll carry on now. Just let me know if you get any answers. But yeah, we were looking at sort of we've got a game. It's gone gold. We're waiting for all this stuff to come back. So what exactly is polishing? Why are we spending our time polishing the sort of game? And basically, it's all down to that user experience, isn't it? You've been waiting for this game, and that ties into marketing as well. So you need those good reviews. People will get bonuses based on getting an 80 on Metacritic and above, which is essential.
I don't think that. After the uproar that was, I can't remember which studio it was that was literally their bonuses were based on Metacritic. I think after the backlash, I don't think that happens nowadays.
Right. Good. Well, thanks for correcting that. Yeah, but it's stuff we've been saying.
And there you go. Listen.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I kind of see why. It's some encouragement, isn't it? But it's not really fair. But didn't it just miss out by a couple of points, actually?
I think it
got 78, needed an 80 or something like that. Yeah. So, polishing, just for user experience, getting the best game you can, using that downtime as best as studios can as well. So, getting the best experience over to you.
Yeah, I think the important things here are obviously bug fixing and user testing, and how getting that feedback from users that you can then directly put back into your game dev. And that ties in hopefully with Daryl and Pete talking about Team Project a little bit this year, and how the final stages, especially for final year, the way that they do their team projects is that they do 3 game jams, or actually we call them game sprints, but they do multiple sprints, and then in between they're making iterative development. So by the time they get to the 3rd sprint at the end of the year, they should be in a position where the game is gold. We'll put that in quotes.
As gold as you can get on a vertical slice,
Yeah, that game is gold, it's ready, and all they need to do now is polish it, get that user testing, get that user feedback, and implement the finishing touches, essentially. So how does the concept of polish now tie into Team Project?
It's so important. I think a lot of the time when Pete and I have been teaching Team Project over the last few years, the polish, they seem to think it's going to happen magically while they're asleep on the last evening. So it has that polishing stage is long and time consuming and iterative, and requires you to factor it into your planning. So I mean, what I've written there is just 3 sort of simple bullet points, but it is the final bullet point. But that time planning and management of your time is absolutely critical, and you need to have a plan for it. I talked this morning about not expecting a huge Gantt chart with absolutely every single asset and every line of code sort of like mapped out in a huge document, but a broad overview of what the critical paths are, what needs to be created in what order in order for that game to actually be fully functional. But even when it's fully functional, you'll find that there, tweaking a single variable such as movement or weapon speeds or things of that nature can make a huge difference to playability. So you've got to do A/B testing on everything that you change. Sometimes you might want to do A, B, C, D, E testing, sort of, and get gradually towards that sort of sweet spot for the project that you're working on. But that is not going to do itself. It's not going to be something that you magically realize whilst you're asleep at night and it comes to you in a dream. It's going to be something that involves you interacting with other people, getting playtesters involved, getting feedback. That's without even contemplating the sort of like the elephant in the room that is QA. If you've got bugs in there, how are you going to know that there are bugs unless you actually stress test your game? So you need to go through that process of trying to break it. And I think a lot of the time we see that students are so swamped because they try to create quite complex projects, and they are so swamped with the work that they try to do for team project that they never get around to any stress testing of the game. They never get around to any serious play testing. And the games are much weaker for it. And I think personally, if you go back to, sorry, I know you just changed away from the slide, but so the original concept, you can go back, you can leave the slide, it's fine. But the original concept needs to be cool, really, really fun. If you can imagine what that fun factor would be before you even put your fingers to the keyboard. But if you go through that process, then you're heading in the direction of creating something that's small, that's scaled, that you can probably finish to effect. You should have, let's do the sprint thing. It's probably easier to discuss it from a sprint perspective. You've got three major sprints plus a weekly session. In those major sprints, that's where the bulk of the work is going to get done, and you should be contemplating in the first sprint getting it up and running and having a properly working build. And that's a major ask really in 1 week. Now we'll have a little bit of time to incrementally develop that each week. By the time you get to the second sprint, that second sprint should really be heading towards a series of refinements and developments of the gameplay and polishing. And then the final one really should be everybody just polishing. You shouldn't be at the development stage any longer in that final sprint, because the work has to be complete essentially at the end of that process. So that should be everybody, just looking at the correcting sort of like font layouts and color correcting, and from a code, just like trying to massage those values, like I said before, just working on those tiny little details, maybe sort of the pacing of the introduction and how you get into the game, just finessing the UI. All of those things are those little things that sound small are major factors in how people will interact with the product that you make, and it will teach you more about game development than pretty much anything else you'll have learned on the course. Because it's all very good to say, well, I'm a games artist or I'm a game programmer, but unless you've actually created something that is actually fun, then you've never really created a game, in inverted commas. What you've created is an interactive product that people could look at and go, that's interesting, meh. So that's kind of what I'm always looking for in that process. I don't know whether Pete wants to say, he's been quite quiet today. Do you want to add to that, Pete?
Yeah, so just to go into the bug testing side of things, I think it's it's slightly easier to tackle bug testing head on, because quite commonly it'll be, we've got a problem, let's fix it. User experience is a little bit more ethereal. How do you go about actually targeting that? What approach do you take? With bug testing, there's always, all software has bugs, all complex software has bugs, it's unavoidable. But what differs is the developer's margin of acceptance for those bugs. How many bugs are you willing to have? What level of testing are you going to do? How much time are you going to spend testing? Because time you spend testing is time you're not developing. And some people subscribe to the theory of only testing those critical pathways through the software, so that if something breaks, it's not something that's game breaking, that's actually falling over. So it's important to map out all these approaches you're going to take, I think, so that you're not just going in blind and saying, deciding in the moment that we're going to go about this way, or we'll just kind of deal with it as it comes up. If you're going to have a testing plan, then make a testing plan. If you're going to test through user feedback and do it all at once, and that's fine, but it's probably, because it's not structured testing, you're probably going to have a few more bugs. So you just need to be aware of that and what the outcomes, what the potential outcomes are going to be, depending on the choices you make. And that ties into the user experience testing as well, because that's going to, whether a game's fun or not, that's going to make or break your game. So it's whether or not you're actually having focus groups and you're having people playing it and you're watching them. It's important to realize how you're going to capture that feedback and what you're actually going to do about it. It's all well and good having the feedback, but then what's your plan for implementation? What's your plan for actually certifying which piece of this feedback is worth implementing? You know, not only for your vision of what the game should be and keeping that pure to an extent, but also realizing when you need to make a change to actually make the game playable or fun to your target audience. There's lots to consider there. So you need to start thinking about that as soon as possible, I think.
I think that's really quite an interesting subject, is that idea of, yes, you're building this game, but throughout the development process, especially for the team projects here, is that they're going to be getting feedback from all different sources, from yourself, from Daryl, from Gary and the SIGTRAC team, to maybe I'll pop in and give the final year some feedback. They'll be getting it from all these different sources, but how are they actually going to collate that feedback? How are they going to sort through it and decide which bits they're going to actually take on board and make changes based off, which they're going to reject, and what is the rationale for that rejection as well? Because that's quite an interesting, is that you can't just arbitrarily go, well, Daryl came in and said that he really liked this, but then Pete came in and said he really liked this bit. So what do we do? Well, you need to have a system in place to go, well, let's evaluate that feedback. Let's see which one we're going to take forward. And actually, then again, how are we going to actually adapt to it? How are we going to make the changes without completely destroying our workflow, completely destroying the way that we do things? So as you're building your team, as you're putting your project together, you should have things in place that allow you to adapt to feedback on the fly. It's a lot harder it's easier to say than do, but that is something that you should be doing in a team.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's not only identifying and gathering the feedback, it's analyzing it and then deciding what you're going to do with it. That's equally important, if not more so. Yeah,
because we all, at the end of the day, this is one thing, we all have an opinion, and it's whether that opinion is the right one is based on how you approach it. So I could come in and say, well, I don't really like RTS games, and you make an RTS game, but I think you should do this. Now, what was the rationale for me saying you should do this? Was it purely based on the fact that it's an RTS and I don't like them, or was it based on artistic drive? Was it based on a technical implementation? Was it based on user feedback? As I was playing it, did something feel wrong to me? Now you need to evaluate that feedback and say, okay, well, what did that mean? How was that feedback given? How am I going to approach it?
It's an interesting point. Also feeding onto that, it's who your audience are. I mean, if I only play RTS games, for example, I do like RTS games. It's not all I play, but if that's my the main thing I play, and I'm coming over and trying out your shooter, I'm going to have a different prejudice to someone who just plays shooter, or someone who just plays a different type of game, just plays puzzle games. They probably are going to have different predispositions to what they like, what they don't like, the feedback they give. So it's important to probably be aware of who you're actually getting to give you this feedback.
Yeah. And I think sometimes with students that prejudice, they kind of ignore it. They go, oh, well, you don't really like this type of game, so I'm going to ignore your feedback. Well, if every dev did that, is that they would never have a big audience. You've got to take on, yes, you want to appeal to the audience that like that type of game, but you also need to try and find out ways that you can appeal to other people and try and bring those into the fold of your little niche of games. So there's a difference between just being very specific towards that audience and actually being a little bit more generalized and actually trying to bring in a bigger audience.
If we can go back to the slide, Gary's just mentioned the middle point. We haven't done the bullet points in order, but you're absolutely right, Gary. Analysis of strengths. Yeah, obviously, if you're putting a team together, you need to know what you're good at. So I'm not a big fan of the term SWOT, but it does sum up an awful lot of what you should be doing. You should be looking at what you're good at, figuring out what you're bad at, and not try to do it. As I said in the meeting we had earlier today, team project is not the place to be trying to develop brand new skills from scratch. You should be consolidating what you already know and making games based upon what you know you're already good at.
Yeah, it's about that experience working in a team, doing that industry style approach as well, and getting you sort of ready for it. So, you ready to move on?
Yeah, I mean, basically what we did at the back end of this, and this is, I don't know whether we're going to wrap up with this, but what we have here are a bunch of videos that the students produced over the last few years.
It's a pretty interesting one. I remember visiting, and this was sort of it was progressing quite fast, if I remember as well.
Yeah, they got a long way with it. They won Transfuser, and they started development. So they went into the Transfuser hub at the university and continued development of it. But it was a very big game. I think the sort of concept behind it was we're going to essentially make a kind of WarioWare for VR, and we are talking. This thing was just either 3 or 4 years ago now. So it was the first year I started teaching this particular team project, and yeah, they got an awful long way with the development inside of the team project module. But once they actually started having to develop completely new concepts and things of that nature, things did start to slow down somewhat. Plus, they obviously had to do their own promotional work as well. So yeah, it's a bit sad that it fell by the wayside and never actually got released.
Yeah, but I mean, I think because obviously it was VR and it looked quite fun and everyone was laughing when playing it, it got more people wanting to play it and then giving that important feedback. So I think it was quite a good game to get that feedback from, just because people were having fun with it.
That's very true. I think that's a difficult thing this year. We've been discussing VR projects this year. Clearly, we won't be able to get sort of the to the point where we're swapping headsets on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Do you want to play the next video?
Yep.
So this is, if I'm going to be honest, this is one of my all-time personal favourites that we've had out of final year team project. There was just something about this game. It was just mad right from the very beginning, and they did so much. There's so many little systems that underpin the way this works, and there's so much really cool interaction and the gameplay between the environment and the characters, and the way that the characters can use the environment as a weapon. I really like that. So you can throw your opponent into the grinders, let alone just using your own weapons. So yeah, this is simple. It's mostly about collision. They're one of the more technical problems they have to solve is how to get the blood splatter and things of that nature to land on the surfaces and not kill the computer at the same time. So they went through lots of iterations on that. But for me, this was one of the sort of things that should have been a commercial game, and actually at the end of the year this was going to be a commercial project, and it unfortunately, it's a very long story, but one thing led to another, and it so far hasn't happened. It's possible this might get resurrected and brought back as a commercial game in the future, because it is superb.
See,
I was going to say, what's quite interesting is that there's a game very similar to this that's came out relatively recently. I don't know if you've played it, called Party Animals.
No.
It's essentially Rabid Rumble mixed with Gang Beast's physics system, and it's very similar in concept, and it's very Party Animals is very popular on like Twitch streams and things like that at the moment.
Well,
yeah, I was going to say
synchronicity and all that.
I've never seen it before, but to me, I'm guessing a lot of that polishing came down to good movement control and good feeling on that because of those environmental hazards.
Absolutely.
Without that, it's nothing, is it? Without those physics, so.
And this is another good example of a game that had a tremendous amount of iteration and polish put into it. So this is Wibble Wabble Wobble, produced by the students last year, and this again, it's a collection of systems. It won many awards at Game Republic. I think it won Best Team and Best Game, and it's just got so much going on. There's this physics on everything, mad amounts of physics all over the place. The buildings collapse. There's the characters themselves, like Gang Beasts, are physics driven, and yeah, it's mad to play, and it's just again one of those things that I would have loved to have seen taken forward post graduation, but unfortunately, as happens a lot, the students got jobs and it didn't really do anything post graduation. But great little idea, and again,
you make that sound like it's a bad thing. No, they all got jobs. It's a very good thing.
No, actually, in my opinion, they should stop doing it. I'm sick of it. They should make the damn games and finish them. This thing of going and getting a job and a salary is for the birds. I don't know. What do you do? It'd be nice if this could continue deaf for the next 5 years and they didn't get into these exclusive contracts that they get into. But unfortunately, that's not the real world.
See, this one stood out to me because basically what Pete was saying earlier is that you need the right sort of bug testing. There's many types of testing, and they work together quite well as a team to realise what would be the best for the game. All the feel. Sure, there's still bugs left in it, but they got that feeling right through the correct testing and working together as a team quite well.
Yeah, definitely. The core game always felt really good. They had it. The core gameplay was finished really early. So a lot of what they did was planning out that testing, planning out the polish, and so they gave themselves loads of time to do that because they had the core gameplay loop nailed in. Well, I think it was the first game jam, certainly, very, very quickly.
Yep. Is this the last one?
I think so, and then we'll. But what's quite important?
No, it's not the last one because we stuck Pete's in there as well. We can talk over that.
Okay. But what we need to add is that obviously any first years and second years watching is that your team project is going to be running a very different way than this. But this is the bigger project that we're doing final year. The stuff that the first years and second years getting a week is really impressive. And actually, maybe we do another live stream at some point.
Yeah, and this is Tether, as you probably saw. Sorry, Matt. This is Tether, and visually, I think this is probably the most visually stunning game that I've seen a final year team produce. The quality of the effects and the lighting, combined with sort of clever camera angles, so you see the geometry from sort of a high vantage point. Just great. I mean, it didn't. To my mind, didn't play as well as it might. There's quite a steep learning curve. Maybe that's just because I'm rubbish at these sorts of games. I'm not very good at twin sticks, but absolutely sumptuous from start to finish, and really, really just thoroughly polished. They spent a tremendous amount of time polishing the hell out of this game. So that's another very good example of what's been created. And then this thing, and I'll let Peter talk about this one because it's his baby.
Yeah,
it's Baby Shark. In fact, this is Baby Shark.
So slightly funky trailer, but
see, weirdly, I got just a very tangent. Baby Shark is now the most viewed video on YouTube with 7.5 billion views.
Behave. It should be this.
Yeah, I'd like to say we had some involvement in that, but I think this was after Baby Shark. So yeah, this is Doom Buggies, and this is the team project I worked on with a group of guys. When I was in the course, and just like any project, we had there's always problems to solve, but it always came back around to we did have a good team structure. We had good relationships in the team, and what I mean by that is not that we were just friendly, but that we could have serious conversations about when things weren't going right, which I think is very important. Be able to give critical feedback, and also discuss the positives too, of course. And it just that planning piece is really important. Those skills around not just being able to program and produce good art, really, really key, I think.
Yep. So running out of time, so really quickly, Daryl had a slide. I don't know if you want to actually build on what Pete said first, but
yeah, I think it's more the conceptualization phase. I did say I was going to copy and paste this into the chat, so I'll do that right now while I'm thinking on. So yeah, Daryl's going to send a message on Twitch. There you go. So Mythbusters proved that you could polish a turd, but I wouldn't recommend it. What me and Pete are going to be looking for at the beginning of the module, and actually we can start that right now. If you've got ideas for team projects, then tell us what the ideas are. It's okay to have multiple ideas, and we'll help you sort of like refine the best of them. And then once we hit the ground running in January, we can make tremendous progress based upon having a the kernel of a great idea. What I don't want is you to sort of fight us. I guess that's the main thing. We've had that a couple of times. Like I said, we've had a couple of people that sort of seem to think that they know an awful lot more about how games are developed than we do, and they've usually come a bit unstuck. We've not demonstrated their games here for obvious reasons, but it is something that we are very happy to do. Pete runs his own business. He isn't actually working directly with the university officially this semester. He won't be starting until next semester. But as you can see, he's been around this morning and he's around this afternoon. So good guy, and he's being very, very helpful. So make use of the fact that like Gary puts an awful lot of his own time into this. That we're available collectively to help assist and hopefully help you choose the best possible thing to work on.
Yeah, I am, and like Daryl says, I'm on Discord and such, so there's no reason you can't contact me, or I won't be on any of the chats or that. So I'm still about.
So hopefully that gives you a tiny bit of insight into why things like Cyberpunk get delayed and what happens and how game dev cycles can change and adapt over time, and we can take some of these through into our team project modules and actually make some awesome games, which is what the purpose of us being here is to make some enjoyable projects. So as always,
graduation, I'll love it. Yeah, as always, go on.
As always, you can catch us on YouTube, YouTube/HudUniGames, so you can watch the past streams. There's some really good ones. Last few weeks we've been doing some more discussion-based things on different subjects. We had one on failure and how to overcome it, and making sure you don't take the right things away from the experience, to last week when we were talking about the fundamentals and making sure you learn the fundamentals, and Gary will be in the chat. We'll be fed up with that word because we had Gary on. And keep in touch and make sure you join us on the Discord.
Yeah. And thanks, Pete, for joining.
So thanks, Gary, for helping as well.
Yeah. So thanks for that, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.